stroller wagons are prohibited. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Disney with Kels podcast. I'm your host, Kelsey Conkling, and today's episode is going to focus on what a lot of my skits on TikTok and Facebook are kind of based around, and that is the rules, regulations, policies that they have at the Walt Disney World Resort. Now, again, I'm going to focus on Walt Disney World because I have not yet visited any of the other Disney theme parks, but Walt Disney World is the most visited, so I think it is still appropriate to just talk about Walt Disney World. So here's the thing. This episode topic was inspired by a lot of comments that I got on a video that I posted a couple days ago. And this video was a repost from back in March, and it was about the dress code at Disney. So Disney World does have a dress code. If you do not follow that dress code, then they can ask you to leave, they can ask you to change and do all these things. If you don't comply, then they could probably trespass you if they want. And the comments that I was getting were from people basically saying that Disney is violating your First Amendment rights by limiting your freedom of speech. Now, I just want to be very clear. I'm all for free speech, First Amendment, love it. Love First Amendment. But yeah, Disney World is not the government. Disney World is not a right. The First Amendment protects you from government entities restricting your speech. That does not apply to private companies and private property. So just putting that out there. Disney World is a private entity, a private company. They are allowed to make whatever rules they want. And they can trespass you from their property if they so choose. Right? Okay. As long as they are not breaking any laws that are set forth. Right? Okay. So basically what I am just going to do in this episode, I have pulled up on my computer that's right in front of me, the Walt Disney World property rules, Walt Disney World Resort property rules. There is an entire page on their website that is dedicated to the rules. And so whenever somebody ever says to you, oh, I didn't know that was a rule, I'll just point them to this page and say, well, you could have looked it up. So I'm just going to go through all these rules, and if I have like a little funny anecdote or just things that I want to say about the rule, then I'm going to. So we'll go through it. So the first part of the property rules that are on here is the general Walt Disney World property rules. These things are kind of just overall statements that they say. I'll just read it to you. It says, welcome to the Walt Disney World Resort rules. To ensure a safe and enjoyable experience for all our guests, please respect the following rules. So they're asking you nicely, so you should follow them, right? All persons, bags, parcels, clothing, and other items may be subject to screening and security checks. Now, there is security checks before you enter any of the Walt Disney World Resort theme parks. So if you are, for example, going to Magic Kingdom, if you come from the Transportation Ticket Center, you go through security at the Transportation and Ticket Center, and then if you come on the monorail or the ferry boat, you bypass that because you've already gone through security. If you're arriving from the buses, you do have to go through security there. But all that to say, you do have to be subject to security checks so that they can make sure you are following all of their rules, the rest of the rules that we will get into. Now, they have evolved these security checks since COVID and since just in recent years. So everybody walks single file line through metal detectors. And they're like special metal detectors, and they've got cameras above them. And if you get binged, get flagged, then they ask you to step over to the side, and they do search your bags, your strollers, and then they will most likely wave a metal detecting wand around your person just to make sure you're not bringing anything that you shouldn't. So that's the first one. They just let you know you are subject to screening and security checks. So don't be surprised when that happens. The next one, we reserve the right to not allow any bag, parcel, or other item and to deal with any unattended object, bag, or luggage in such way as we consider appropriate. So just saying, don't leave your stuff laying around. Firearms, ammunition, knives, and weapons of any kind are prohibited, so don't bring those, even your pocket knives. I live in the South. A lot of the men carry around pocket knives, so just be mindful of that. Don't bring in your pocket knife. Smoking marijuana or other illegal substances is not permitted at any time. For the comfort of all guests, Walt Disney World theme parks, water parks, and the ESPNY World of Sports complex are smoke free. The smoking of tobacco, e-cigarettes, or other products that produce a vapor or smoke is allowed only in designated outdoor smoking areas. Now, I have made several videos about smoking in the parks, vaping in the parks. Just know it is not permitted. It is not permitted anywhere except in these designated outdoor smoking areas. Now, at the Walt Disney World theme parks, these are located outside of the park entrance. And I only know where the one at Magic Kingdom is because it is on the way to the buses. So in the past, the Disney World did allow smoking in the parks, kind of in general, and then they limited it to designated smoking areas within the parks that were kind of set away from everybody, but also kind of near bathrooms. Like I know there was a smoking area over by Splash Mountain that's now since, it's just like an area that I think they put a few benches over there. But I don't know when that rule changed, but now it is only permitted outside of the park entrance. So nowhere in the theme parks should you be smoking or vaping. Now, does it still happen? Yes. All rules get broken at some point. And I do think, in my opinion, that Disney does need to crack down on vaping in the parks because honestly, like it's just annoying. And I understand that smoking and vaping is a really hard addiction to break. And for some people, they can't even go a few hours without taking a hit. So I'm just saying, but they do have areas outside the parks that you can do that. So I hate the excuse of like, well, they're not letting you, like, I have to have it. Okay, well then go outside the park and do it. But yeah, and there's a lot of people in a camp that say vaping is not harmful in any way to anybody else. And I said, that's not true. Secondhand smoke is just as bad. Oh, but it's outside. Like, well, there are people that are vaping inside the lines as well in indoor spaces. So I don't want to hear that either. Sorry, I just get very passionate about this because it's just inconsiderate for one. It's just rude because you think you need something. That way, that means you get to inconvenience other people. No, take it outside of the park if you really need to do that. So anyway, that's just a rule that they say. Also at the Disney World resorts, they do have designated smoking areas. They're more frequent just because they're kind of nearer big groups of buildings at the hotels, but all in general, it's not allowed except in those areas. So don't do it. The next one says a $250 to $500 room recovery fee will be charged for smoking in guest rooms or on balconies or patios at Disney Resort hotels. So again, you are not even allowed to smoke on your balcony or your patio at a Disney World resort. And the same goes for the Disney cruises. You are not allowed to smoke on your veranda. They made that change within the last several years because people would just be smoking all the time out on their verandas, and the people that wanted to sit out there and enjoy it would just be smelling cigarette smoke all day, and it was gross. So just saying, that is the rule. So if you smoke in your room or on your balcony, you are going to be charged a $500 fee. The next one says children should be supervised. Guests under age 14 must be accompanied by a guest age 14 or older to enter a theme park or water park. To board an attraction, children under age 7 must be accompanied by a person aged 14 years or older. So no, you cannot drop your preteens off at Disney World to have a day of fun. They need to be accompanied by someone 14 or older. And then you cannot let your 6-year-old go on a ride by themselves. Even if you think they can handle it, it is not allowed. They need to have someone who is 14 or older with them, just as a general rule. And then the last one under general Walt Disney World property rules says tickets, credentials, and other entitlements are non-transferable, non-exchangeable, non-refundable, revocable, and void if altered. The ticket must be used by the same person on all days during its period of validity and is not valid for special events that require a separate admission charge. Applicable ticket and valid identification confirmation are required for entry, re-entry, or if applicable, crossover into any park on each day of the ticket's validity. Tickets used to redeem or access benefits and entitlements such as Disney Genie Plus service must be the same ticket used for park entry. So basically all this is saying is that once a ticket has been assigned to you and you use it, so for example, if you have a 5-day park ticket, you use it the first day, that ticket is now yours and cannot be transferred to anybody else. So they say they're non-transferable. Well, they are transferable up until the point that you use it for the first time, right? So like if I buy a 1-day ticket, I end up not being able to use it. I can transfer it to like my mom if I want to, if I don't use it first, right? So like you can't use somebody else's Magic Band because it is linked to your ID, and you have to claim your ticket with your ID when you first get it. So those are the general Walt Disney World property rules. It says these rules are subject to change at any time without notice. So just, keep an eye, like the day of your trip, just read through the rules, make sure they're the same, make sure you're not breaking any of those rules, right? So now we are going into the prohibited items section of the property rules page. So there are a lot of items that are prohibited, and we mentioned some of them already, but there are lots of prohibited items, and some of these are things that you might not think about. So I'm here to inform you. And sorry, my nose is really itchy. If you're watching on YouTube, I keep scratching my face. It's just itchy. So I'm just going to go through this list and explain any further if I need to. So the first one that is prohibited is firearms, ammunition, knives, and weapons of any kind. We already said that before. Self-defense or restraining devices, ergo pepper spray and mace. So you are not allowed to be carrying around pepper spray or mace in your bag, on your person, at Walt Disney World. That is just not allowed. I know you can conceal it rather easily, I'm sure, but I'm not telling you to do that. Just know that any pepper spray, mace, and probably even those long, like twisty looking sticks that a lot of women have on their keys, they will probably take that away as well because it is a self-defense device. I will say I believe that Disney security is really, really good at their job. And so if you ever, also there's a bunch of people around all the time. There's cameras everywhere. There's even secret security that dress in plain clothes to blend in with the crowd. So there's always help available. There's even like in places where you kind of feel alone, like maybe at the campgrounds, there's camp phones on the comfort stations that you can use to call for help. So, if you feel so unsafe without your pepper spray, you can make your own decisions, but I'm just telling you the rules. Self-defense or restraining devices are prohibited. Marijuana, including marijuana, enriched products, or any illegal substance. So don't bring any sort of drugs to Disney World. And I don't know if any of this is going to get flagged by YouTube, so I'm very sorry if that happens. You probably aren't hearing this anyway, maybe on Spotify. But you can't even bring like CBD gummies, nothing with THC, nothing with marijuana in it at all, no edibles, nothing like that. The next one, objects or toys that appear to be firearms or weapons. Now, this is interesting. This is an interesting one. So you are not allowed to bring, so like for Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, if you are dressing as a character that has a weapon such as like a blaster from Star Wars or anything, you cannot bring that. You cannot bring a blaster. But they do allow, of course, like lightsabers, and they will let you bring in things that are very obviously toys and fake, like a foam pirate sword. And they sell pirate swords at Pirates of the Caribbean ride, but you can't bring something that even resembles any sort of firearm whatsoever, even if it does very obviously look like a toy. They don't want anybody to panic if they see it, so they kind of just put a blanket prohibition on anything, even toys that appear to be firearms or weapons of any kind. So, yeah, I mean, I think, and granted, a lot of these things are up to cast member discretion if they let you in with those items or not. But in general, like, don't even try to bring in a Nerf gun. I don't know why you would bring a Nerf gun, but don't do it. So the next one, alcoholic beverages except at the Disney Resort hotels. Wine may be brought into Disney Springs to be consumed at select table service restaurants only. Corkage fees apply. So you are not allowed to bring your own alcoholic beverages into the Walt Disney World theme parks and water parks. You can bring your own alcohol to your Disney Resort hotel. And again, you can bring wine only, not hard liquor, to Disney Springs to be consumed at your table service. And there is security checkpoints at Disney Springs. And so if you do bring in wine, they will probably just make sure that you have a reservation for one of those table service restaurants. But again, you cannot bring your own alcohol into the theme parks. And, I've seen some testimonials of people that, they bring their own alcohol in their water bottles. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do anything that's going to risk you getting trespassed from Disney World. It is not worth it. Just if you really want to drink, then pay the premium prices and get the drinks there. Okay. The next thing, glass containers, except small containers such as baby food jars, except in the Disney resort hotels. So again, this is for the theme parks and the water parks. You cannot bring in glass containers except really small ones for like baby food jars. The reason for this is they don't want it breaking and going everywhere. Shards of glass. It's just a safety issue because glass is really hard to clean up outside. It's really hard to clean up in general. So they don't allow glass containers at all. So even if you have like a glass water bottle, I've seen those that are in like a silicone carrying thing. Don't bring those. Bring a plastic water bottle. So the next item on the list of prohibited items at Walt Disney World Resort are horns, whistles, large megaphones, or artificial noisemakers. Now these, I would say this rule is more so for the ESPN Wide World of Sports. The Wide World of Sports complex does host a lot of different sporting events, especially like the cheerleading, dance. Those are the big ones. And people generally probably want to bring horns and whistles and noisemakers to those things to be in the crowd, but they are not allowed. They are also not allowed in the theme parks. Again, I think this is more so like they don't want to cause a panic. If somebody's blowing a whistle or blowing a horn, megaphones aren't allowed because we'll talk about that later, but you're not allowed to like stage a demonstration. I do believe though that they sell like the Donald Duck quacking thing, like you blow into it and it quacks really loud. I think maybe people just bring those in and they don't catch them, but those things are really annoying and I wish those weren't ever made at all. But yeah, again, so don't bring any bullhorns or whistles or anything like that. The next one, recreational devices such as drones, remote control toys, skateboards, scooters, inline skates, or shoes with built-in wheels, such as Heelys. Bicycles are permitted only in designated Disney resort areas, so don't try to bring your bicycle into the theme parks. Don't do that. But yeah, you cannot bring your drone if you are a vlogger. And sorry if you can hear that. That car's really loud. He goes by here all the time and he's very loud. Anyway, don't bring a drone. I know that some people have tried to bring drones to get really cool shots of the resort, but they don't want that. It's a security issue, very big security issue, especially, you can fly that drone anywhere and see backstage areas and see things like that. So no drones. Oh, there he goes again. I don't know if y'all can hear that. It's just, the car is so loud. Remote control toys. Now, Disney World does sell some remote control toys, especially the droids that you can make in Star Wars Land in Batuu and Hollywood Studios. They do allow you to play with those in the parks. In Hollywood Studios, I don't know if they will let you bring it back in. But there are people like playing with them. But I know that if you are being like driving them into people's feet, they'll ask you to stop. But in general, can't bring remote control toys. Skateboards and scooters and skates and Heelys, basically shoes with built-in wheels, not allowed. Again, safety issue. Most of these things are a safety issue, but skateboards can get away from you. Scooters can. Inline skates, they don't know how good you are with inline skates. Like, you're just not allowed to bring them because you might run into people, hurt other people, or hurt yourself. So they don't want that. Oh, I'm just reading all these. I don't quite know what's next, but I just saw what was next. This one I have made so many videos about. Okay, you ready? This is prohibited. Strollers that are greater than 31 inches in width and 52 inches in length. Stroller wagons are also prohibited. I read that word for word from the website. Stroller wagons are prohibited. Now, I know those of you who are watching and listening to this know this probably because I have made so many skits about it. But y'all, on the Disney Facebook groups, there is like 12 posts a day about people asking about their specific stroller and asking if the stroller wagon is allowed. They're not. They are not allowed. Now, what this doesn't say is that you are allowed to have a stroller wagon if it is used specifically for a medical need. Now, a lot of people ask, well, what would that medical need be? I'm like, well, um, I have talked to people online and just, commented back and forth with them and seen they need it for, it's usually a child. They need the stroller wagon to hold their child's medical equipment. It's usually kids that are fed through an G tube or just a G tube, or kids that maybe have seizures. And so they need to have a safe spot with them at all times if they do have a seizure. So things like that. And if you do need a stroller wagon for medical purposes for your child, then you can talk to guest relations when you get to the park, or I think you can call them beforehand and get that approved. And then they will give you a tag to put on your stroller wagon to signal to the other cast members that you are allowed to have it there. So that being said, there are plenty of strollers that fit within these size categories, but there are also so many strollers nowadays that are being made and sold and are very popular that are these giant, massive things. So the reason that they have the size restrictions on strollers and the prohibition on stroller wagons, except when absolutely medically necessary, is because they're so bulky and they take up so much space. And with how busy the parks already are, we don't need things taking up more space, right? Stroller wagons are also a lot harder to maneuver than like a smaller umbrella stroller, so that you have to take that into account. And there are so many people that bellyache, especially on the Facebook groups, that they need, like, it's just not comfortable for their child. They need this giant big double stroller. Lots of double strollers do fit within these size requirements. You just need to measure it, okay? Make sure before you go that they are going to be accepted. Now, it's kind of a running joke a lot of times about the stroller issue, but I'm just saying, don't give yourself more of a headache than it needs to be. Also, your kids will most likely be okay if they are in a smaller stroller for a few days. They will be okay. Now, if you absolutely need a big stroller or a big stroller wagon for your child for medical purposes, then that is a conversation you can have between yourself and guest relations, and they would be happy to help you with that. So asking in the Facebook groups like a million times a day if your specific stroller is going to work, when I bet somebody else has asked that before, or you can just measure it. Yeah, you don't need to do that. So just measure it. And when in doubt, take a smaller stroller. Take 2 single strollers instead of a double if it's, you and your spouse and your kids. Just say it. That is my 2 cents. There are just so many people that think that the stroller rule is unfair in some way, but there are much bigger issues in the world. Okay. So next one. Okay. So after it said stroller wagons are also prohibited, the next one says wagons are prohibited at any theme park or water park. Wagons are prohibited at indoor venues at ESPN Wide World of Sports Complex. So I don't know if this means that they are allowed at the outdoor venues at the Wide World of Sports Complex. I have never been there, so I don't really know. But you can't bring wagons at all. You can't bring stroller wagons. Wagons are pulled behind you. They take up space. You can't see where you're going with them half the time. So that's why. Next one, any trailer-like object that is pushed, pulled, or towed by an electric conveyance vehicle or an ECV, scooter, or wheelchair, stroller, or person. So you cannot bring any trailer-like object that is pushed, pulled, or towed by anything. So there are some attachments that can go on strollers and where your toddler can stand or sit. There are some I know that have been approved by cast members in the past for some people, but not other people. So honestly, when in doubt, don't put anything that attaches to the stroller, that's being pulled by it. If it doesn't absolutely look like it's meant to be with the stroller. Now, there are some strollers that do have it attached automatically, and those will probably be okay. But again, they just don't want anything that can come off or anything that's going to be a safety hazard. Everything's about safety, right? So they don't make these rules arbitrarily. Everything has a reason. And, you can say what you will about the rules, but if you are going to Disney World, then that means that you are saying that you're going to comply with the rules. And if you don't like the rules, then don't go. That was a big thing on my video the other day, what I talked about at the beginning, these people are like, they just have no right to say all these things. I was like, one, yes, they have every right to put these rules in place, but you also have the right not to go. Disney World is not a right. You don't have to go to Disney. No one's forcing you. If you don't like their rules, if you don't like how they do things, then don't go. It's so simple, but people get so up in arms about it. All right, next one. Prohibited: wheeled mobility devices with less than 3 wheels or devices that cannot maintain stability and balance when stopped, unpowered, and or unoccupied. Training wheels and or modifications are not permitted. Devices must be manually or electrically powered and operated at a walking pace. Devices should be single rider and not exceed 36 inches in width and 52 inches in length. Again, size constraints, so you cannot bring a bike. Basically, you can't bring a bike or a scooter and call it a mobility device. You cannot put training wheels on a bicycle and call it a mobility device. Next one that are prohibited: suitcases, bags, coolers, or backpacks with or without wheels larger than 24 inches long and 15 inches wide by 18 inches high are not allowed in any theme park or water park. Loose or dry ice is not permitted in these containers. Reusable ice packs are recommended. So you cannot bring very large items into the parks, especially this one is more so for the cooler size. So you are allowed to bring in your own food to Disney World. You can bring your own food and drinks, except non-alcoholic. And so I encourage people a lot of times, if they're going to do that, bring a soft-sided cooler, because then once you empty it, you can fold it up and put it in a bigger bag. But they cannot be larger than 2 feet by 15 inches by 18 inches high. So just think about that. And I also don't think that they're allowed to have wheels at all. Maybe if it's small enough and it has wheels, that's okay. But you can't like tow it behind you because it's the same thing as a wagon. And then the big piece there is loose or dry ice is not permitted. And the reason for that is safety. If people were dumping out their loose ice all the time, people would slip on them. That would not be good for anybody. So if you are bringing a cooler, bring reusable ice packs like you would use in a lunchbox. Easy peasy peasy. The next item is folding chairs. Folding chairs are not allowed in any theme park, water park, or at Disney Springs. So there are some people that have tried to even bring in those. They're like a circle. They look like a disc, and you turn it, and there's basically like a stand that pops out of it, but then it collapses again. Those even are not permitted in the theme parks, water parks, or Disney Springs. The reason for that is they want to keep motion flowing, and if they allowed folding chairs to be, especially in the theme parks, people would set up camp for the fireworks, and it would be chaos. It would be utter chaos if they allowed folding chairs into the parks. There are plenty of benches. There are plenty of places to sit. And if you cannot stand for that long, you can rent a wheelchair, bring your own wheelchair, rent an ECV. And they do have designated areas for fireworks viewing for those who cannot stand, who are in wheelchairs. Excuse me, my voice is cracking. So again, folding chairs, don't bring any chairs at all into the parks or water parks or Disney Springs. The next item, selfie sticks, handheld extension poles for cameras or mobile devices, flags, and banners are not allowed in any theme park or water park. Again, safety issue, especially selfie sticks. So when selfie sticks were first introduced, people brought them onto rides, and then they either hit other parts of the ride, like especially on Space Mountain, because those tracks are very close together, or they hit other people, or they flew out of their hands and like hit people in the face. Not good. Don't bring selfie sticks. Don't bring handheld extension poles for your camera. In my What's in My Disney Park Bag video, I showed you what I bring into the parks. That's a gimbal. It does extend. I take the risk that it's going to get taken every time, but I don't extend it like at all. It is just a handheld pole. It doesn't need to be extended at all. So just don't bring it if you are nervous it's going to get taken away. But definitely no selfie sticks. And again, things still get into the parks, but if they see you using them, they're going to take them away from you. And then flags and banners. Don't bring any flags. Don't bring any banners. Don't do that. Next one, tripods or monopod stands that cannot fit inside a standard backpack or that extend over 6 feet are not allowed in theme parks, water parks, Disney Springs, or ESPN Wide World of Sports Complex. So you can bring a tripod into the parks, but they cannot be more than 6 feet tall. And sometimes, if you set up your tripod and then walk really far away from it, they're going to ask you to not do that. Because people could trip on it, they're not paying attention, which again, that's on the other people, but you know how everything's about safety. So you need to be pretty close at hand to your tripod and make sure that it can fit inside of your backpack when it is folded up. The next one is very specific. Balloons are not permitted at Disney's Animal Kingdom theme park, the water parks, ESPN Wide World of Sports, or Disney's Animal Kingdom Lodge, both Kidani Village and Jambo House. Now, this one is for the safety of the animals at Animal Kingdom and Animal Kingdom Lodge. They don't want the balloons because the balloons can fly away, and if they pop, the balloons themselves can get in the enclosures, and that is a safety risk to the animals. Water parks, I think it's the same sort of situation. If they pop, they get into the water, clog something up. People can slip on the actual balloon itself. I don't know. But yeah, you are not allowed to bring balloons to Animal Kingdom or the water parks or Animal Kingdom Lodge. Now, if you do accidentally forget and you bring your balloon to Animal Kingdom, they have what is called balloon daycare, where they will keep your balloons safe while you are at the park and then give you a little slip of paper telling you what they did that day. And it's usually that they watched the movie Up. So no worries there. You don't have to pop your balloon if you accidentally bring it to Disney's Animal Kingdom, but just be careful and be mindful. Just try to remember to not bring them. The next one is also specific to Animal Kingdom and the water parks, and that is plastic straws. You are not allowed to bring plastic straws into Disney's Animal Kingdom theme park, the water parks, or Disney's Animal Kingdom Lodge, both Kidani Village and Jambo House. Now, this is a safety issue for the animals. If the plastic straws get into their enclosures, that's not good. They do have, actually, I'm going to take that back. I don't think that they have straws at all at Animal Kingdom. Now they don't give out plastic straws at any of the theme parks anymore. They are either paper or the cane sugar straws. Like they're made, like they don't taste like cane sugar, but they feel like plastic, but they're very biodegradable and easily dissolved and everything. But yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think there's straws at all at Animal Kingdom. And if you try to bring in your plastic straws, those will get taken away. They're just a safety issue for the animals. There's, birds even walking around all the time. So even if you drop your plastic straw on the ground, the ducks or the birds could pick it up, and that's just not good for anybody. So don't bring plastic straws to Disney's Animal Kingdom or Animal Kingdom Lodge. People bring their plastic straws into the other theme parks, but don't try to do that at Animal Kingdom. The next one is non-Coast Guard approved flotation devices or swim noodles at any water park. So you are not allowed to bring your own swim noodles to the water park. And if your life jacket is not approved by the Coast Guard, you cannot bring that either. Now, puddle jumpers, I have no idea if they are approved by the Coast Guard or not, but I would just caution you about bringing puddle jumpers in general. The research on them is that they do not teach your child how to save themselves from drowning. So just do some research on that from me. I would just get a normal Coast Guard approved life jacket, an actual jacket that buckles in the front. So that your child is as safe as possible. So just don't bring your own pool noodles or your own floaties or anything like that that's not Coast Guard approved. And then the next one is additional prohibited items at ESPN Wide World of Sports Complex. So again, this is for Wide World of Sports specifically. You cannot bring, and this is, they have big sporting events and sort of like tailgating things, and I don't know all they do, but I know they have dance and cheer competitions. Oh, and I think one time I saw a dog show, like dog agility show at Disney, the ESPN Wide World of Sports Complex. So that's kind of cool. But anyway, here are things you can't bring there: generators, propane heaters, large misting fans. You can bring your a personal handheld misting fans, but you can't bring a large standing one. Flags or banners of any kind that are larger than 3 feet by 5 feet, regardless of how the flag or banner is intended to be carried. Metal flagpoles. Flagpoles must be made out of wood, plastic, and or PVC. Flagpoles cannot be longer than 4 feet, have diameters larger than 2 inches, or have decorative or sharp ends. So these, sports people that, want to support their team, those are the guidelines you have to adhere by. Excuse me. Coolers are prohibited at indoor venues except for team coolers, which must remain at the team bench. And folding chairs are not permitted in the stadium, indoor venues, or select outdoor events. So that's specifically for ESPN Wide World of Sports. And then the last thing here at the bottom says, we reserve the right to prohibit the use or storage of any other item not listed above that we determine may be harmful or disruptive in our sole and absolute discretion. So that's basically them saying, if it's not on this list, but we say you can't have it, you can't have it, and we'll take it away. And we might not even store it. We might just throw it away or ask you to leave. So this next section is prohibited activities. So all those other things were items that you can't bring into the parks. Now these are things you cannot do in the parks or Disney Springs or your hotel or whatever. The sale of goods or services or the display of goods or services unless prior written approval has been obtained. I don't know what prior written approval they would grant other than to actual Disney people. But there was an influencer, oh gosh, I don't know how long ago it's been, maybe a year or so ago, it's probably longer than that was trying to sell his own merchandise. It was like homemade Mickey Mouse ears that like an Etsy shop, which Disney can be cracking down on those pretty hardcore. If they send you a cease and desist, you got to stop. But he was trying to sell those inside the parks and he got a trespass notice. It was really unfortunate, but he also filmed his whole trespass thing, and so it was just not good for anybody. So don't try to sell things or displaying it or advertising it in any way, okay, inside the parks. Don't do that. Next one, the distribution of printed or recorded materials of any kind unless prior written approval has been obtained. So don't be handing out pamphlets or little business cards or anything unless you've gotten approval. That again goes into the advertising things and the display of goods or services. Next one, engaging with other guests or impeding operations while posing as or portraying any character in costume. This is a big one. So even if you're in full costume as the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, you are not allowed to act like the character, pose for pictures with people, or sign autographs or things like that. Like, you got to make it very clear that you are, like, if you're dressed as Maleficent, you are not Maleficent. And if little kids come up to you, you gotta be honest and tell them, oh, I'm just dressed as Maleficent for the party. But I think you can meet the real Maleficent over there, the Disney cast member who is very best friends with Maleficent. This is a big one that people have gotten in a lot of trouble for, even when they're Disney bounding. And that's why, like, sometimes Disney bounding can go a little too far. And if you don't know what that is, that means you are dressing in the likeness of the character with like colors and maybe different, like the style of dress, but you're not quite like in full costume. But what was happening sometimes is that someone dressed in like a Belle Disney bound, but she looked really much like the Belle that meets characters from Disney, and was telling, people were coming up to me and being like, oh my gosh, like, Belle, can I get, a picture with you and autograph? And they were doing that and getting in big trouble. So they just want to preserve the character integrity of their characters because they own the characters. So just know this mostly applies to the Halloween party. If you are dressed in full costume as one of the characters, don't pretend like you are that character and be honest with the children. Because people are like, well, how can you tell the kids that you're not actually that character? I'm like, well, it's really easy. You just don't tell them, but tell them that they can meet them somewhere else, right? Anyway, the next one, engaging in any unsafe act or other act that may impede the operation of the Walt Disney World Resort or any part thereof. Just be safe. That's an easy one. Unauthorized access or entry into backstage areas or areas designated only for cast members. Plenty of people have gotten in trouble for this. Don't go into the backstage areas. If it says cast members only, don't go back there unless you are indeed a cast member. Next one, unauthorized events, speeches, or use of any flag, banner, or sign or other material for commercial purposes or as part of a demonstration. Don't be trying to start a protest in the middle of the Magic Kingdom. Don't do it. It's not allowed. Again, preserving the magic. Next one, photography, videotaping, or recording of any kind, or otherwise engaging in any activity for unapproved commercial purposes. You are allowed to video in the parks, just not for commercial purposes, for unapproved. So like if you were, I don't know, using it as B-roll for like a movie you're making or something, or trying to film a movie in the parks or something, like you can't do that without approval. Next one, unauthorized solicitations of any kind, whether commercial, religious, educational, or otherwise, or conducting any unauthorized commercial activities, including solicitations of money or other contributions or donations. Don't be panhandling at the Disney World parks. Don't try to get people to donate money to you in the parks, things like that. Like, just don't solicit from people while you're in the parks. Obstructing sidewalks, entrances, driveways, patios, vestibules, stairways, corridors, halls, or landings. I don't know. Don't block the walkways. That's an easy one. And then hanging any clothing, towels, bedding, or other similar items over or on balconies at a Disney Resort hotel or from fire suppression sprinklers. So if you're building a pillow fort in your room, don't hang the sheets from the sprinklers. I thought that would be pretty self-explanatory, but the big one is you can't hang your towels on the railings of your balcony. I know that's very tempting, but again, they just want to preserve the look of the hotels and things like that. Next one, we reserve the right to prohibit the use or storage of any other item, blah, 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 blah. They have their discretion. And then this one says, for additional rules and regulations, please click on the links below. And this one I think is, these are still the park rules, but some people like to put them in like the other category because it says guest courtesy and attire policies. It doesn't say rules or anything, but these are their policies. And again, they can do whatever they want, right? So the first one says proper attire, including shoes and shirts, must be worn at all times. Clothing that drags on the ground is prohibited in theme parks and water parks. So those long ball gowns, you can't wear those if they drag on the ground. Clothing with multiple layers is subject to search. We reserve the right to deny admission to or remove any person wearing attire that we consider inappropriate or attire that could detract from the experience of other guests. Visible tattoos that could be considered inappropriate, such as those containing objectionable language or designs, are not permitted. There are specific costume guidelines for special events such as Halloween parties and Run Disney events. Please refer to the additional policies applicable to those events. Anyway, we can maybe get into those later. But basically, if they say that your shirt is inappropriate, they can make you change. They can make you leave. Again, this is all Disney's discretion. They are a private company, a private entity. They can make the rules that they want. Next one says costumes may not be worn in our theme parks. So that's what I was saying, the full-fledged costumes. You can Disney bound, but you can't wear the full costumes except during the Halloween parties. But costumes may not be worn in our theme parks, water parks, or the Wide World of Sports complex by guests ages 14 or older. So the 13-year-olds and younger may wear costumes. Now, I will say if you have a 12-year-old who looks a lot older and who is wearing a full costume and people might mistake her for like the princess she's dressed as, they might make her change. But, it's a very case by case basis. But in general, if they're 13 or younger, they can wear costumes. The next one says masks may not be worn by any guests age 14 or older unless required for medical purposes. When worn by younger guests, masks may not cover the entire face and must provide unobstructed peripheral vision at all times with openings that allow the eyes to be fully seen. So this is security, but this is also safety. Excuse me. If there are, so there's plenty of like Halloween masks out there, but the big one is they have to have unobstructed peripheral vision. I don't even know if there are masks that do that because I don't even have unobstructed peripheral vision with my glasses. So I don't know how that could be done with like a costume mask, but anyway, that they put that on there. The next one says, and this is why this next rule, the policy, is why some people say it's not a rule because it says the word please. But this says, please show common courtesy to fellow guests and our cast members by not using profanity or engaging in unsafe, illegal, disruptive, or offensive behavior, jumping lines, or saving places in line for others. For your safety and the safety of others, please refrain from running except in designated areas. So it says it explicitly here, basically don't jump lines or save places in lines for others. And I know that there are there's plenty of exceptions to that. But if you have a party of 15 and you send one person to wait in line for you and the rest of them 14 join you up there, don't do that. That's what they mean. They don't mean like if you are with your family and your toddler has to go to the bathroom, so you leave and come back. That's not what they mean. And they don't mean, of course, with the new DAS pass rules and everything like that, that's what they're telling people to do. They don't mean that. They mean like if you have one person wait in line for you and then everybody joins you at the very end because you simply don't want to wait in line, that's rude. Don't do that. Don't skip lines in general because that's rude. But yeah, so that's what it says. Next one, access to attractions depends on the safety rules for each attraction. You have to be a certain height requirement. That's what that means. Guests using the pools, spas, fitness centers, or other Disney Resort hotel facilities must also adhere to the rules posted and applicable at those facilities. Cool. Quiet hours at the Disney Resort hotels are from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. If people are being loud after 11 p.m., you can absolutely complain. Like it says it right here. There's the policy. And then guests must vacate their Disney Resort hotel rooms at the end of their stay on the date and time set forth in their reservation confirmation. There's really not any late checkouts for that. And then basically at the end, they have some animal policies. Don't feed the birds. You can only have a service animal. Pets are only allowed at certain Disney Resort hotels. Have to be on a leash and under control of their owner at all times. And then it just goes into the company rights, basically saying that they reserve the right to deny admission or prevent entry or require someone already admitted to leave without compensation for failure to comply for any of these rules or for illegal or offensive behavior or if we consider that the circumstances otherwise so require in our sole and absolute discretion. So that's it. Those are the rules. So basically, follow Disney's rules, and if they, excuse me, sorry, my nose is so itchy. If they deem that your behavior is inappropriate, they can ask you to leave. So that is that. Those are all the rules. Take them with what you will. If you ever have questions, refer to the Disney World website or ask a Disney cast member. But I don't have a Disney joke of the week because I forgot to look one up before I started filming, and now I don't really want to. So anyway, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Disney with Kels podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel, hit the follow button, subscribe button, leave a comment, leave a like, do whatever you want. But thank you so much for joining. I'm your host, Kelsey Conkling, and I hope you have a great, big, beautiful tomorrow. See you later.